All right, let's jump right into this explainer because today we are tackling one of the absolute most fascinating philosophical puzzles ever debated, the relationship between divine omniscience and human freedom. For centuries, people have just wrestled with how the classical Christian claims about God actually fit together. I mean, think about it. If God knows everything, creates everything, and judges everything, do human choices actually matter?
It really all boils down to this one massive question. If God knows everything, are we really free? We kind of have to challenge our whole perspective here. Are our lives just some pre-written script that we're mindlessly acting out? Or are our choices genuinely our own? Does knowing the future mean you're actually forcing the future?
To figure that out, here is our roadmap. First, we'll look at how God works, then, knowing the whole story, providence is not puppetry, the viral clip judgment, evil as real damage, and finally, communion over cosmic control. Let's get started.
Section 1, How does God work? The relational foundation. Okay, before we get into anything else, we really need to set the stage. Asking how God works is not about finding hidden gears in some giant cosmic machine. We aren't prying open a mysterious box here. Instead, when we map out these classical Christian claims, what we find is this brilliant, structured architecture. God isn't just the biggest object inside the universe. No. God is the source that allows logic and relationships to even exist in the first place.
Let's use an analogy to break this down. Think about Tony Stark opening up an Iron Man suit to fix a clunking noise. He's working on a mechanism inside his reality, right? But asking how God works isn't like fixing a mechanical part inside the universe. It's totally different. God is more like the deeper source that makes the Marvel universe itself possible. You literally can't put the existence of reality itself on a lab bench and just dismantle it with an Allen wrench.
Moving to Section 2, Knowing the whole story. Omniscience versus discovery.
Okay, so imagine you're watching Star Wars for the very first time. Luke Skywalker genuinely does not know the big Darth Vader reveal is coming. He is experiencing the story one moment at a time. But if you already own the completed movie, you possess the entire story at once. The fact that you know the ending doesn't mean Luke is secretly experiencing the future during the earlier scenes. In the exact same way, God doesn't have to wait for tomorrow to load. God knows the whole history without learning it sequentially. But we still have to genuinely live our part sequentially. To put it simply, temporal succession in creation is not epistemic succession in God.
So the really crucial point here is that knowing an action will happen is fundamentally different from causing it to happen. Imagine Dr. Strange knows Peter Parker is going to make an absolutely terrible teenage decision, like, pressing an alien button. Strange's knowledge doesn't magically reach across the room and press the button for him. Peter is perfectly capable of making that disaster happen completely on his own. Knowing an action and being the efficient cause of an action are just two totally different things.
Which brings us to Section 3. Providence is not puppetry. Primary versus secondary causation.
Well, if God isn't causing our every single move, how does this providence actually coexist with our own agency? Think of Han Solo flying the Millennium Falcon. He exists in this massive, encompassing universe with rules, the Force, and huge political structures. But when he makes a ridiculous maneuver, he is the one flying the ship. That's providence. Now, on the flip side, look at Loki using the Mind Stone to brainwash Hawkeye. Loki displaces Hawkeye's agency entirely. That is literal puppetry. Christianity doesn't view God as some giant Mind Stone overriding our wills. We are genuine secondary causes.
And because you and I are real agents, our choices have serious weight. They basically follow this sequence. First, you take an action. That action leaves a consequence. That consequence creates a modified history. And that history permanently creates a changed accessibility for everyone else. Think about it. If you help someone today, they might be brave enough to help someone else tomorrow. But if you betray someone, trust becomes a lot harder to access. We are just constantly dropping things, gifts, wounds, opportunities into each other's futures.
I absolutely love how the comic legend Jack Kirby put this. He said, "The machine knows that we're responsible for it, that it wouldn't be there without us. Our human responsibility is incredibly real. The larger design we operate within doesn't erase our local agency. It actually gives it a place to permanently matter."
Section 4, the viral clip judgment, justice and context. So because our actions actually matter, they must be judged accurately. But honestly, us humans, we judge by extreme compression. We look at a 10-second viral clip online, strip away all the context, and make this massive moral conclusion. It's exactly like J. Jonah Jameson seeing one out-of-context photo of Spider-Man and instantly declaring him a menace, completely ignoring the fact that he just saved 47 people. Human judgment is incredibly low resolution, but divine judgment sees the whole movie.
It doesn't rely on missing information.
Because God is perfectly truthful and omniscient, perfect judgment includes literally everything. It includes what you actually knew, what you genuinely didn't know, your true intentions, the pressures you faced, any genuine alternatives you had, and any subsequent repentance. Perfect justice is not some game of arbitrary rules or a celestial point system. It's a completely truthful recognition of your entire relational state. God doesn't have to guess.
Section 5. Evil as real damage. The privation theory.
Now, if God's judgment is perfectly truthful, it has to truthfully recognize when things are genuinely broken. The classical idea of evil is known as privation. Evil isn't a second dark substance competing with good. Think of a smashed lightsaber. If Luke drops his lightsaber and it shatters, you don't need a magical new ingredient called brokenness to explain it. Something that was supposed to possess integrity has simply lost it. Evil is real, devastating damage to something originally good.
Because evil acts like a parasite on good things. We see that lies damage truth, betrayal damages fidelity, and violence damages integrity. Evil takes something good and disorders it. And this part is absolutely vital. True mercy isn't about pretending the damage never happened. If a lightsaber is broken, you don't just say, actually, it's supposed to be in 17 pieces. Mercy repairs the historical reality without denying the wound. The bad stuff really did happen, but perfect goodness refuses to let that broken state be the final state.
Finally, Section 6. Communion over cosmic control. The final purpose. So you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble of letting creatures have real freedom in the first place? Well, if God just overwrote our wills to force compliance, it wouldn't be love. If Professor X uses his powers to just mind control everyone until they agree with him, sure, that produces compliance, but it absolutely destroys love and trust. Real communion requires the other person to remain a free, distinct agent. The stronger crosses the distance to the weaker instead of just forcing the weaker to become a puppet.
Which brings us to our ultimate takeaway here. The end goal of this entire system, the omniscience that doesn't force, the providence that guides but doesn't puppet, the justice that tells the whole truth, and the mercy that repairs, none of it is about cosmic control. It is communion. It's an invitation to a real relationship. And that is only possible if you are genuinely free to participate.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If God knows the whole story without having to learn it, but you still have to genuinely live it to make it real, how will you write your part? Literally everything you do is dropping reality into tomorrow's backpack. So what are you putting in there? Think about that as you go about your day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.